Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of my cloud course on this YouTube channel. And this video is going to be about cloud virtualization. And this video especially I want you to pay close attention to and make detailed notes because this is one of the key aspects of this topic. So I'll write that down here. So now before we get into the video, I wanted to quickly tell you to click that big red button saying subscribe. The reason I want you to click this is because not only are you supporting my content, but you're more likely to be finding my content on your recommended list. And if you click the notification bell right next to it, you'll get an email indicating when I release new content, and once again, it's more likely to appear on your recommended sections. So that way, you won't be missing out on early learning opportunities, and you'll always be kept up to date with my content. Now, in this video, we'll be covering cloud virtualization, and virtualization is something we barely touched in the last video, and we're going much more in depth within this video. Now, we've got lots of different types of virtualization. For example, we have storage virtualization and we have desktop virtualization. We've got much more. These are just a few examples, but we're going to be forgetting about these for this video because we're going to be focusing on VDI, or it is more commonly is basically an acronym to represent virtual desktop infrastructure, and we're also going to be focusing on server virtualization. So here we are at the server virtualization, and this diagram right here, I'm going to explain to you now. Now the hardware is I'm going to explain what this means, but first I just want to define what these are. So your hypervisor is your virtualization layer. If you don't understand these concepts, I'll explain it to you. Oops, my handwriting is not very good right now. And this is our operating system, which we commonly use an acronym OS to represent. So I'll quickly write that down, and underneath there we've got our hardware. These are like our physical components. These things like CPU, your RAM, your memory, your network interface card, your disk space, whatever else there is. And on top of this, as we climb this ladder, we have the VMs of virtual machines. And this case is going to be the virtual servers, servers we store things on. And now I'll explain why this graph is so useful and explain the system of server virtualization. So server virtualization simply means we're running our servers as virtual machines. These VMs indicate that. And this is all possible because of the software between them. Now, to understand this concept better, I want you to think of this as a sandwich. Now, when you have a sandwich, it won't really be nice to just have two buns, right, on top. So I'll keep the hardware and the virtual machine as the buns, and I'll use blue to indicate the fillings. So it won't be really nice to just have a bun. It'll be boring, really, if you ask me. So having fillings inside, such as lettuce and meat, it makes it taste better. If you use this concept in this way, we can understand this a lot better. So a hardware is not directly tied to our VMs because of the software layers in the middle. So this is all the fillings that we have. Now the fillings are the virtualization layer, the hypervisor, and the operating system. And these make it easier for us to use these and to, manage them. So a sandwich, you have fillings to make it taste better and for it to be more nutritious if you keep it healthy. And it's the same way here. So instead of making more nutritious, we're making it easier and more secure to manage it. So let's just say with the hardware, it's gonna be difficult for me to manage all of this. So having to use a text-based user interface as a CLI every single time, we can use a handy GUI for the operating system and the hypervisor, and we can use Amazon Web Services, for example. That's a really good example of it. Now, what I wanted to explain to you is that we've got something called shared hardware, and this is not the actual term used, but we'll just use this for a bit. I'll deal with the actual terms. So shared hardware basically simply means that our live physical resources, so our physical resources, the hardware, I use this acronym right here, are being we're sharing it with the VMs, these virtual machines. Now, the reason this is so important is because our virtual machines require actual physical hardware to be to be used. So CPU, the things I was talking about before. Yeah, I'll write down that. So what I need you to understand here is that we've got actual terms to describe this, and I'll write this in green. It's quite bright, so you should be able to see it really easily. So these are known as abstract and independent hardware. We just usually refer to as abstract and independent. So these are two terms I want you to understand. So this table represents how our hardware is not directly tied to our virtual machines, because we've got these sandwich layers in the middle, which are the software, and these software make it easier for us to manage and keep our virtual machines up to date, more secure, and have a better user experience for our clients, or be more secure with our storage if we're using it in server virtualization, for server virtualization reasons. So that I want you to understand this concept first, and if you don't understand it, just leave your questions in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. Now, what this next thing I wanted to explain is that the advantages and disadvantages of using this. Now, it's pretty clear one big advantage of this is something that we've studied in the last video, which is scalability, our old friend. You don't remember the one which I said goes hand in hand with I can't remember what the other thing was. Scalability goes hand in hand with, oh yeah, elasticity. So scalability is when as our demand increases, so does our capacity to manage that. Now, what I mean in this practical sense is that, well, we've got lots of data we need to store. So, for example, we may have 5 terabytes of data, but our virtual machines we only have enough virtual machines for 4 terabytes. Well, it's going to be really easy for us to spin up boot up another VM via Amazon Web Services or whatever, and we can use that, and it's going to be a cheap alternative instead of getting an entire blade server and a new chassis to store it and all those things. This is all based on the cloud, it's efficient, it's quick, and well, that brings us, well, the disadvantage, which is I'm going to talk about now, is clearly the security, which I was going to say there, but we keep it here. So a disadvantage is going to be security, and I'll write this in red so it's clear. Now, the reason I'm saying security is such a big issue here is because we need to have the correct security infrastructure in place to secure the fact that our data is not going to be compromised by hackers or other third parties trying to damage or obtain our data. Now, this is extremely important because if this was some other type of virtualization, I don't want my, so let's just say I'm a client which has been using a VDI, which I'll explain in a minute. So virtualized desktop infrastructure, and well, I expect my data to be secure. So I don't want people just to be taking my private information, so my Gmail and my um you know my passwords, my family photos. I don't want them to take my private information, so we need to make sure we've got a security infrastructure in place to prevent this. So we want to make sure we have the correct infrastructure to prevent. And this is a key as well, because if we don't have the correct infrastructure to prevent this, we are going to have bad reviews, we're going to be risking other people's trust, and in all, we're just kind of unsuccessful time running our business or corporation, whatever we're using. So this is it for server virtualization, and next we'll be talking about um VDA. So this is me back from the future, and I just wanted to quickly add one more term. And this term is used to describe when we have abstract or independent resources, so abstract hardware or independent hardware. And this is what we call this is what we call multi-tenancy. So multi-tenancy is just simply when we've got shared hardware or abstract hardware. That's the actual term to use. So multi-tenancy. I just want to put that out there because if you're going to be doing exams such as the one for CompTIA, this is a term that they are likely to use. So just keep this in mind and be careful if someone just throws this term at you, so because I want you to understand it as well. So here we are at this is VDI, and VDI is something which is something that's key really, and it's getting more popular by the day. So this is mainly because of the rise of cloud. So VDI stands for Virtual Desktop Infrastructure, as I wrote down there, and we're using the same diagram to explain it. So virtual desktop infrastructure. So when you read that, you're probably gonna be thinking about a user on their laptop, and it's probably gonna be some sort of virtual user or something like that. Well, really, what this is when we have a VM, which is going to be a client OS, so a client operating system, and this is going to be running a operating system here, as it says. So this one we can use Windows 10 or Linux as an example. Let's stick to Windows 10. So this client OS, which is a virtual machine, is using Windows 10, and we're going to connect this directly to a user, and I'll call this user Bob. He has a very popular name, and Bob is on his computer and he's accessing the internet and all these wonderful resources through this client OS, which is connected to a virtual machine, which is connected to the cloud. That's quite a mouthful to say. So this client we've got here, Bob, is going to have a major disadvantage in this. So this is basically VDI. So we're using a virtual operating system to supply to a user, but Bob here does not know that he's putting something that which he does not know. He's putting his information at risk, and this is the major disadvantage of this, and that is data storage. So I'll explain to you why this is such a dangerous and a very big hazard. So Bob right here, he's going to be using the internet, and he's going to be downloading things such as photos of his family or accessing his Gmail. And to do that, he's probably going to be using a wireless, as that's mainly how the systems go nowadays. So he's going to use a wireless connection. So all this information is going to be used, and he's going to be needing to store information as well, which is really obvious. So where is he going to store all that information? That's the main question. And the answer is one of two places. Well, one or two main places. And the one which is most likely, which you'll probably guess, is the cloud. And the second is he's going to store it locally on his local server or on his device or whatever it is. But this is unlikely. So this is unlikely that they're going to be storing it locally, due to the fact that it's a cloud service, and cloud's an amazing place where you can access the internet. So locally, just forget about that idea since it's not really common. And the thing is, when we're creating information, and when we're creating information on the cloud, we're also going to be storing it on the cloud. So it's quite easy for hackers and third parties to intercept that data and without us even knowing, we can have our data compromised. And poor Bob right here won't even know what happened, so he'll be very sad to know that all of his information has been gone. Oops. That looks more like he's got a moustache and he's crying. So poor Bob has lost all of his data because the cloud service is not being able to is not secure enough to actually do. That's a major disadvantage. But look at the bright side here. The one major advantage of this is going to be the simplicity and the actual accessibility to this feature. Since not many people are going to be not many people are going to have the option to get a actual physical operating system or wherever it is. VMs are a great alternative. So actually, that's not the greatest example. We keep it this way. So the advantages is simple and it's efficient. So Bob has been able to connect to the internet, and it's a lot easier than have to manually set it up yourself, since we've got an entire infrastructure. We've got an entire infrastructure as the Amazon Web Services to do that for us. So lucky Bob is being able to enjoy having an easy way to get a OS and connect to the internet. But unfortunately, Bob is also lost all his information without even knowing that he has. So that is it for this video, and I hope you found it useful. As always, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and share this share, click the bell button if you're new. And without this is the end of the video, I guess.